So the way this is really, I look at it as a class. We're actually studying the Course. We're studying the Course in some detail. For those of you who don't know, who weren't here, we started this over 5 years ago in May of 2013. We very slowly went through the entire text of the Course, doing one chapter per month. Actually, there was a couple of months that we had to spend on one chapter because one of the chapters is really long, and it also took 2 months to do the first chapter because we did the 50 Miracles Principles separately from the rest of the chapter. And now we're just approaching things topically, and one of my ongoing interests has always been the overlaps between the Course and the whole history of mystical traditions from wherever they are, because truth is not new. Truth has always been true, and it's always been here. What's unique about the Course is its level of psychological sophistication and the very fact that it is really, truly a document of the 20th and the 21st century, because it brings so much. It's no accident that Helen Schucman, research psychologist and professor at Columbia, was given the Course, right? So as the Course is going all the way home, by all the way home, I mean it's really going to enlightenment, which means that we are to actually do what Jesus did as a matter of fact. We are not going to stop at some sort of happy dream along the way. So that's a lot. I mean, to talk about actually reaching enlightenment, and I'm not certainly thinking that I'm there, or I don't think any of us would say that we're there. If you're there, you know you are, and you probably keep your mouth shut. Or maybe not. Maybe you'd feel like Jesus did, that you want to talk about it, right? There could be an enlightened farmer in Illinois happily going about his business, and the whole world doesn't know about who that is, and it really doesn't matter, right? Because that one knows, right? So in August, the last class that we had was on Zen and the Course in Miracles and the overlaps that occur between Zen and the Course, which is a lot of fun to look at. They're very similar, and both of them are really focused on peace of mind and getting back to a quiet mind. So next time, by the way, in December, I'm having a fellow, his name is David Brown, he's from Florida, who's coming up, and the topic is going to be Vedanta and A Course in Miracles. So Bill Thetford, who was Helen's cohort in production of The Course in Miracles, said at one point that The Course in Miracles is the Christian Vedanta. And it really is the Christian Vedanta. I won't take time to explain what Vedanta is at this point, but just understand it is basic non-dualistic philosophy. The Course is a non-dualistic system. You can't have two. I mean, you can't have heaven and hell. All there is heaven, right? And so we're working our way toward heaven and trying to work our way out of hell along the way. And the Course is really doing a lot of shadow work, to use Jungian terminology, but then really help us to move deeper into looking at where it is that we lie and hide and have hurt feelings and just not in alignment with kind of the mind of God. Now, I want to share with you that, oops. Pardon? Okay, so let's go. I read 3 books this past summer and fall. in addition to the Course in Miracles. Actually, my wife says you do not read books. I listen to books as I drive the car. It's because I just did a tour of Texas and there was a lot of driving, so that meant that I got to listen to one of the books that's coming up here in a minute. But these are the two others. And this one, being different, was exciting to me because the author, Rajiv Malhotra, is an Indian scholar. He's an American Indian scholar, and he spent a lot of time talking about Dharma and karma, and I found that very interesting in relationship to the Course. Essentially, according to Malhotra, while historical revelations are the basis for Western religion, for example, the Bible and the Quran, etc., Christianity is based on the Bible, Judaism is based on the Torah, and Quran is obviously basic to Islam. Dharma is a little bit of a different story because it emphasizes self-realization and the creative role of bringing order out of chaos. So much of what the Course is about, it's also about bringing order out of chaos so that really our minds become a peaceful mind. It's a quiet mind. This is a course in mind healing. We're learning how to heal the mind and just to be at peace. Right? So the next book that I read, this I listened to this past summer, is called The Field by Lynn McTaggart. And if you just, what this is about, if you look down to the bottom, it presents a picture of an interconnected universe and science that makes sense of miraculous phenomena. So what she's really saying in there, it's not something new as far as metaphysics is concerned. Everything has always been, is interconnected. It has to be interconnected. And actually the deeper that science goes, empirical science I mean now, new science, the more we understand how everything, as a matter of fact, is interconnected. So a butterfly flapping its wings somewhere in Africa somehow or another affects the whole universe. And in terms of the Course in Miracles, all of our thoughts have their effects. It's not just what we say, and it's not just what we do, but even down to the level of how we think has its effect. So that's a fun part that we're going to be studying as well. And then how many of you know this guy? How many? I'm just curious. Who's been, all right, we got 3, 4, 3. Well, I've listened to his book twice. This is an incredible guy. He is a professor at the University of Toronto, Jordan Peterson. His mind is like, whoa. It just, there's no field of study it looks like that he hasn't looked into, particularly Jungian psychology. He had a previous book on the meaning of mythologies. But it's such incredible depth that he's going to. He's got thousands, I think, at least hundreds of YouTubes out there at this point, right? And he's become this book, The 12 Rules for Life, is currently the best-selling book on Amazon. It's interesting, if you go to the New York Times, it's not listed. And the reason why it's not listed in the New York Times, although it is in Publishers Weekly, it's listed as the #1 best-selling book, because New York Times only lists American authors. I didn't know that was true. I did not know that either, but that's the reason that they gave, that he's not on the list, right? Despite that fact, I think this quote here from the New York Times, down at the bottom, and I'm going to need my glasses to be able to see this, says, "The most influential public intellectual in the Western world right now." Now that's a heck of a thing to have it said about you. The most influential intellectual in the world, America, right now. And I really enjoyed his book, so much so that as I said, I've actually listened to it twice, and I'll talk about some of his principles because they work in here as well. So you might check him out on YouTube. And then you may want to get a copy of the book as well. Okay? So let's start talking about Dharma, karma, and the laws of the universe. So Dharma is an ancient concept in Eastern philosophy. You find it in Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Sikhism, and throughout the whole Eastern tradition. So Dharma is the cosmic law and order that makes life and the universe possible. So this is sort of science before there's science. This is metaphysics, if you will, where we're talking about how everything works together. And the real question is kind of is what holds the universe together. And so Dharma is based on the innate knowledge of God. Now when we say innate knowledge of God, that means that it's not something that we're proving through empirical evidence. That there's an innate knowing, right? A deep kind of knowing. This is representative in our tradition in Transcendentalism. This is what Thoreau and Emerson were talking about, that there is a way of knowing God that doesn't require any book or any philosophy. It just requires sitting down, becoming aware of inner guidance and the fact that it's there. Thoreau liked to talk about what he called the inner genius who spoke to him. That's just to be another way to talk. That would be the same thing as A Course in Miracles talking about the Holy Spirit, the voice of the Holy Spirit, right? And again, let's remember that the Course says you only have two choices. There are not three choices or four choices or five choices. You're either listening to the voice of the ego or you're listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit, which is also referred to as the voice for God. The Holy Spirit is the voice for God. And you can tell the difference easily because, first of all, the ego is not very peaceful. It's very disruptive. It's very distracting. It actually takes your peace away from you. It says unpleasant things about you. You stupid, you idiot. What are you thinking of those things for? What do you look what you did now. You just made a mess out of things. You know, the nag, but it's more than a nag. It's also a trap that we can easily get into. And so many of us think that is who we are. And the Course is saying that is not who you are at all. It's asking us to listen to this other voice which tells us about the self that you really are, which has nothing to do with your body. And that seems like a tough one. But it also actually has nothing to do with your personhood. You know, the dress we wear. And by the dress we wear, I mean the makeup, the mask, as Carl Jung would talk about being a mask, right? That we present to the world. That all, we're learning how to get past that. So this is a lot of deep inner work that has to happen to get there. This is not a surfacey kind of a thing. So Dharma includes ontology, which is the study of the nature of being, cosmology, the origin and structure of the universe, and the laws which govern the universe. So I'd say this could all be summarized in both the Course in Miracles and Dharma philosophy as if you can align your mind with the mind, everything works out fine. Okay? I'll get a little poetic if we can here. All right. And this is a good old Albert Einstein, who was a true mystic. By a true mystic, I mean he said all he wanted to know was about the mind of God. Well, if that's all you want to know is what the mind of God is, that's what's A Course in Miracles about. It's about helping us find out what the mind of God is, right? Except, this is Einstein saying, the basic laws of the universe are simple. Actually, the Course in Miracles is also very simple. A lot of people say it's very simple, but it isn't easy. Of course, I got a friend that's got a book out called A Course in Miracles Made Easy. And I think what he really means by that, a little easier for new people to begin to get into, to understand. because that does work. You could make it a little easier to get into, right? But because our senses are limited, keep in mind projection makes perception, and what we know on the outside is pretty well limited to perception. It's limited to what we see. And therefore also perception is inherently evaluative, right? So it's not about evaluation. Remember the phrase, the ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts. So we're going beyond just the senses. We're back to what we were talking about a moment ago as knowledge, just pure knowing. And then Einstein adds, there is a pattern in creation. Well, that's what Dharma says. Dharma says there's a pattern in everything. So we're going to try a little bit today to kind of learn about that pattern and see how it affects us. So the laws of the universe do not permit contradiction. What holds for God holds for you. This is a quote from the Course in Miracles. Whenever it's in italics, it's from the Course, especially if it's got a little where it's from. This is always the FIP edition that I'm working with, the Foundation for Inner. There's several editions now, so know that I'm always working with the FIP edition. Right? Makes it easier to find. If you believe you are absent from God, you will believe that He is absent from you. So it's all a matter of how we see things, not with our eyes, but how we see things beyond the eyes. Infinity is meaningless without you, and you are meaningless without God. There is no end to God, there is no end to you. Actually, I changed that word there. You'll have to forgive. Jesus, I'm sure, will forgive me. This word was the Son of God. I just turned it to you to make it a little bit, all right? There's no end to you. We are the universe. God is not incomplete. And He is not childless. Because He did not will to be alone, He created you like Himself. Now I add, not as a body, but as a mind. So it's the mind that matters. We are the mind and nothing but the mind. This is one of the difficulties in understanding this, is the outside seems to be so real. The outside appears to be so relevant because, I mean, it's in your face, right? You're in a huge city and it's in your face all the time. Even if you were in nature, that would be in your face, right? There'd be something outside of you. When it says when it says in the Bible that we are made in the image and likeness of God, in terms of the Course, it's not saying that your body is made in the image and likeness of God. God does not have a body, okay? It's the mind, which is the same thing. It has to be the same thing. Okay. So, I always found this this top sentence from the Course kind of interesting. It says, "The Creator of life, the source of everything that lives, the Father of the universe, and of the universe of universes, and everything that lies even beyond them, would you remember?" That's quite an assignment. Would you remember all this? So, you can ignore the next part. I'll just tell you what. So one day I'm standing at our kitchen sink, and I'm thinking about that line, the universe of universes. What does it mean that God is the universe? God is the God of the universe of universes. And there's a little bug walking across the white windowsill as I'm talking about, a little round bug. I didn't know what kind of bug it was. Almost perfectly round, very little legs, moving really fast across there. And it suddenly occurred to me, that is the universe. That little bug is the universe, right? Well, if that little bug is the universe, well, then I looked down and I saw a soap bubble. And it was a perfectly round soap bubble that was kind of all glowing like the rainbow, yellow and blues mixed together. And then it occurred to me, that is the universe. And then, boom, that universe disappeared. Just like that. Just like thousands of universes are disappearing at any one moment. Soap bubbles are popping, animals are dying, people are dying, stars are burning out, new stars are coming into being, etc. So this constant, it's a constant process of a kind of rebirth. It's not the form of the thing, though. And I'm not saying that there's consciousness in a soap bubble like there is in us, but it's everywhere. It's throughout the universe, right? So there's from Zen Buddhism, it says, the world is a dewdrop, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning. That's from the Diamond Sutra, from the 9th century Zen Buddhism. Out, brief candle, life support player that struts and frets its hour upon the stage, and then is told no more. Tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So there's a you that you are, but it's not the you that has a history, that has a story, that it's even going to remember space-time and planet Earth. Once space-time and planet Earth is no longer part of the dream, right? Space-time and planet Earth are a part of the dream, right? And then from the Course in Miracles at the bottom, you dream of a separate ego and believe in a world that rests upon it. We dream of a separated ego. We think that's who we are, and that also makes us kind of miserable, because if that's all there is, then let's keep dancing. Right? All right, so. Oops. Well, oh gosh, would you believe it, Paul? All right, let's go to this. Maybe I can get this figured out. So, according to contemporary astrophysics, dark matter accounts for 85% of the matter in the universe. It's dark matter because it does not reflect light. It has to exist, however, because its gravitational pull has a gravitational effect upon the whole universe that cannot be explained unless there's matter is present that cannot be seen. This is not new information for you. So dark matter is omnipresent in the universe, has a strong influence on the whole universe, but we can't see it. And, well, okay. So I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson. You're all familiar with Neil deGrasse Tyson, talking about why don't we call this, and I'm wondering, as he's talking about what dark matter is. And I'm thinking, why don't we call this force, which is behind everything, why don't we call it mind? Or why don't we call it God? Or why don't we call it love? Or why don't we call it life? Right? Let's just call it life. It's just that it is what is that's there. It doesn't, the fact that it's invisible is also the fact that it's real and it's affecting everything. Okay? So, according to the Course, the most, yes?
Before you get, is this on?
Yeah, you're good.
Before you get too far away, I just wanted to quote what the Course says about what you just were referring to about us being created in the image and likeness of God, and it not talking about the physical. The Course states the statement, God created man in his own image and likeness, needs reinterpretation. Image can be understood as thought, and likeness as of the same quality. So God did create spirit in his own thought and of a like quality to his own. There is nothing else. So it's perfectly reinterpreted. I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Very helpful, right?
It's very, very helpful. And again, we have this ongoing problem of being distracted by the outside world. It's not that we have these bodies. We have to live in this world. We got to do what we can with them. We got to earn money and make our way through the world and keep the body healthy and all that. But as we were driving down the West Side Highway in order to come here today, I turn and I look to my left, and I think the city of glass. I mean, all these new glass structures that are being built, and it's fine. I mean, that's the inevitable part of the evolution of the planet, I guess. I was just in Texas this last week, and they have 7-layer highways there that look like something out of the something you would see in a 1930s projection of what the future is going to be. But here are these. There's one place that's 7 layers of highways, and you're somewhere in the middle of this complex. I mean, you got GPS, God's plan for salvation, telling you how to get get around through this whole maze. If it wasn't there, you could get really befuddled pretty quickly, right? And signs and all that, of course, too. And that's just get more that way all the time, which is inevitable. It's sort of fun to be part of this wonderful electronic age that we're part of, but I'm having trouble keeping up with it. I don't know about some of the rest of you. And yeah, it's faster and faster, right? So, back to the most fundamental law. So, you've heard me say in the past that this world is a school, it's a hospital, it's a prison, it's a reformatory, and it can be beautiful or ugly, depending on how we see it. There is a line in the Course in Miracles that says, this place of darkness is not your home. It actually says, this place of darkness is not your home. And it's darkness not because of an absence of light or the sun. It's darkness because of the darkness that we have seen in the hearts of men. And one of the things that Jordan Peterson talks a lot about, and he's really concerned about, is what happened in the 20th century. What happened in the 20th? We had 2 major world wars. We had the Vietnamese War, which was a piece of insanity which should not have happened, and I'm sure that historians will look back on there and think, what were they thinking to have done that? Or the First World War. We went into that for no good reason. It's just like man had to fight. We had to had to become aggressive. There's too much testosterone going on. And I mean, it's all like that, right? But there's got to be another way, right? So Jordan Peterson is a little bit pessimistic about mankind. So on the one hand, he sees that there's an evolution that's going on. On the other hand, he's saying, watch out for the things that happened in the 20th century. If you're not very careful, if you don't look at the shadow, if you don't pay more attention, something else could come up and snap you. And it happens inside each one of us as well as in a collective sort of way. So it's just about being very aware of what's going on. So the Course says, if I intervene between your thoughts and their results. Now this is Jesus speaking, right? This is important we understand. This is Jesus speaking, right? If I intervene between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with the basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. This is the most fundamental law there is. I could hardly help you if I'd appreciated the power of your own thinking. And that's related to the choice making that we're doing. Are we choosing to be guided by the Holy Spirit? Or are we choosing to be guided by this other thing that we call an ego? Well, as Course in Miracles students, what you're doing is we're learning how to slowly, and be glad it's slow, to slowly let go. That's what the atonement is. The atonement process is the process by which we slowly let go of the ego and become more progressively aware of God's guidance in our lives, and then live our lives in accordance with that guidance. But it requires a lot of work. You can't go to sleep. You're literally involved, and I hope you feel that you are involved. I know that many of you do feel it this way, that you're involved in an awakening. Right? So there's an awakening going on. It's happening in lots of places in lots of different ways, and one of the ways that's happening is in terms of things like A Course in Miracles. I mean, I'm not going to say the Course in Miracles is certainly not the only path for awakening, but it's one that works. I mean, right now, today, it's sort of interesting. It's taken, 40-some years, 42 years ago, the Course was published, right? they're doing, this is an international worldwide conference that's going on, and it's happening electronically, and it's happening at this moment while I'm talking. It's the first time we've ever been able to do that. But here we are, but it's beginning to have its, it took a long time, but I think this, and yet if you would compare it, say, to the growth of Christianity in the first century, it's very rapid. It's very rapid compared to that. I mean, it took hundreds of years, literally. It took 400 years to get around to the Romans adopting Christianity, for example, right? But everything is speeding up. Helen at one point talked about there being a celestial speed up. So, back to this quote. I would hardly help you if I'd appreciated the power of your own thinking. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. What that means is one of the things that we have, and you have to have this, is free will. You have free will. You have to have free will because God has free will. And you're part of God. God has free will, you have free will. The problem, of course, with free will is that you could misuse it. So we have to learn how not to misuse this incredible will, this incredible mind thing that's been given to us. We have to guide it. We have to learn how to guide the whole process. And the Holy Spirit is here for us to be the guide, but again, you got to pay attention to the guide. Otherwise, you run in a ditch, which is okay too, because hopefully if you run into a ditch, what you find out is stay away from ditches. Drive more carefully. Watch out where you're going. Don't get caught up in some sort of regressive kind of behavior. That's one of the things that Peterson talks about a lot as well, that the mind can, if you get caught up in some sort of addiction, you get caught in some sort of projective kind of behavior, some woe is me, look how victimized I've been by the world kind of behavior, etc., a depressive attitude, you're just going down. And there probably is no stopping you until you hit bottom, and then, I mean, most of the folks who join Alcoholics Anonymous, why do they join Alcoholics Anonymous? They hit bottom. I mean, you get to the point where you recognize this is, the first thing you got to do, I guess, in AA is you got to admit that it's out of control, right? That you've lost control. And now you need help. You got to admit that you're willing to, well, the Course in Miracles is Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a lot of similarities between the Course and Alcoholics Anonymous, by the way. So the Course is, but it's for our minds. It's not because there's some sort of a addictive kind of thing.
John, before you go off
Okay.
that slide,
Yes.
you said when you started to read, if I intervene between your thoughts, and you stopped and said, no, this is Jesus speaking to us.
Pardon?
You said, you stopped and said, no, this is Jesus speaking to us.
Right.
Wouldn't it be more accurately said that the Christ mind is speaking to us?
That's fine.
Because it's not really Jesus anymore. Because Jesus was the man that was the illusion as well, that saw the face of Christ and all his brothers and became identified with the Christ.
Right.
So that awakened mind is now the one that's speaking to us in the Course. It's not actually Jesus. But I don't think there's a problem saying that it's Jesus, but isn't it completely more accurate on a fundamental level that it's the Christ mind?
I like Christ mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I like using the phrase Christ mind. I think it's more universal. We can understand it easier. I don't have any problems in saying it's Jesus.
No, I don't either. But,
right.
When, as a student, I'm learning to go deeper into, to get to the bottom of what it really is.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that
Turn around so the camera can see you, honey.
Hey, everybody from the retreat. Well, I think it's like you said, hey, John. That's how John is talking about Jesus. Because, like you could say, enlightened one, please tell me about this. But we're all enlightened, if you're all enlightened. So it's just something we got to do while we're here, I guess. But it's good to have an option.
Okay, good, honey. No, don't give it to me. Give it to Brad. Or actually, pass it back to Eric. Pass it back to Eric. Pass it.
Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
This is
that
this
on?
is a I don't know.
Yeah, it was on.
Okay, good.
This is hard to express, and but I think it's an important thing because we talked a little bit this morning about the shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the necessity of expressing what's in in our shadows, right? But I think, if you don't mind me saying this, you just slipped into something that sort of contradicts that, which I think is a pervasive quality that we all are up against. And I think it slipped out on an unconscious way, or maybe I heard it that way. What I heard when you started talking about the thoughts before the 12-step, before Alcoholics Anonymous, when you were talking about it's a slippery slope when you start to examine your dark side in a way, right? But, by the same token, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people, myself, part of myself included, wants to stay away, from those darker, primal. For instance, I've been just like feeling this in a healing I did with somebody recently, feeling this abject terror. Now, I've known this for a long time, but I got to a deeper level of the sense of coming into this world and meeting my parents and the people that were around me, and how absolutely horrified and terrified, like hysterically, the baby was, to experience this, this is, what am I, total claustrophobia, like, how did I get here? What am I doing here? I got to get out of here. But not knowing how to do that,
Can you remember that?
I remember the feeling.
Remember the feeling?
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's, I've been, in a lot of working on myself a lot, but
Right.
going through these things, I know it's true because when I feel it, I feel a kind of uniting with my true being.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a sadness, there's a hurt feeling, but there's also a sense of, yes, this is who I've carried around all these years. This is who I've suppressed all this time. This has contributed to making me a falsely presenting who I am, I haven't included this part in who I present to the world because because it was too dangerous to express at the time. I couldn't, like, throw a little shit fit in front of those people because it felt like they'd kill me. They wouldn't know what to do.
Probably wouldn't have
They
been the
were
right thing to have
primitive.
done either.
What's that?
And throwing a shit fit would probably not been the right thing to do either.
No, well,
helpful.
but it's how I felt.
I understand.
So I think it's a complicated, I find, in a lot of the teachings, there are a lot of ways people can interpret the teaching to avoid emotion or even expressing who they really are. People do that. It happens in class. And I go the other way too far, I think, actually, because I indulge that a little
I
bit.
see that.
And I project it onto other people. my own impatience with myself, I project.
I got it.
Anyway, so just wanted to...
Thank you, Eric.
Sorry.
All right. So we're always going to have that difficulty. Those who were at the conference that we did back in October got to hear Zhao Wang, who was the 21-year-old Chinese lady, who described as a child not fitting into the body and not feeling comfortable with it. And she didn't, and the whole world, and it's just like people fighting on the street, and she didn't understand that, and that was a great distraction to her. And the Course says, you do not live here. This is not your real world. This is not the real world. This is not your real world. I was watching a Dr. Oz thing on television the other night, where he had a group of people, all of whom had had near-death experiences. They're all talking about their near-death experiences. And every single one of them said they did not want to come back. No, please, no, not to that body thing again. Well, here we are. and seeing how here we are, we're trying to learn how to live with this thing so till we can get to the point where we can let it go peacefully, right? But in the meantime, we got something to learn. Keep in mind, if this is a school, then I'm here to learn something. So let me, and you're all doing it. If you're good Course in Miracles students, you're doing it. You're engaged in the process of finding out what the heck is going on. How do I live here peacefully with my brothers and sisters, and with this body, and with this stuff that's on television, much of which we could probably ignore. So let's go on to our next slide. Well, okay, but all right, I want to get through some stuff here.
I just want to say that a lot of my life, I didn't want to be here, and I had a lot of things happen, and I didn't fit in my body. I didn't understand. Things didn't make any sense. I opened up the Course in Miracles. That made sense. I was validated. And I could see now the synchronicity of what I've been through in the past, that I've had the blessings to forgive. That included a lot of stuff. And I could see them as stories now. And that is such a wonderful thing. You know, you see the synchronicity. What happened? This happened for this reason.
Right.
And once you can see past the horrible feelings, you can see that. It's amazing.
Thank you, Lynn. That's very good, hon. Very good. All right. So we're up to our next slide. The foundation of life. How does Dharma work? This is a quote from the Course in Miracles. It says, "The branch that bears no fruit will be cut off and will wither away. Be glad. The light will shine from the true foundation of life, and your own thought system will stand corrected." In a way, Lynn, this is going back to what you just got through saying. So when we prune a fruit tree, one of the reasons to do is to remove the dormant buds in order to invigorate the remaining buds, so you get more fruit. In the same way, that which is not true will wither away and die. And again, you've heard me say in the past, all egos have built-in implodes. We don't have to worry about exposing other egos. They're going to do themselves, and just give it a little bit of time. And sometimes it may seem like it takes a long time, but it's inevitable there, because if there's a kind of poison that's in there, that poison, which is selfishness, essentially, that's a kind of poison, selfishness. One of the things that Peterson talks about, one of the chapters that I like the most, and at some point, not today, I'd like to go into much more detail about, is about, he says, one of the chapters is, one of the 12 rules is, don't lie, at least tell the truth. And what he means by at least tell the truth, not deliberately coming up with some falsehood, not deliberately. There's other kind of lies that aren't deliberate. By that I mean exaggerations, embellishments, etc. And everybody in the room must know what I'm talking about. If you tell me you don't, you're lying. Because who hasn't embellished or elaborated or made something look worse than it was, or better than it was, or just depending upon the circumstance. So one of the things that he's recommending, and I certainly go along with this too, and this is one of the ways that you can look at the shadow, is just becoming more and more aware of any kind of, even a small thing like an exaggeration, right? Or an embellishment. That's a good way of cleaning house. The whole atonement process is about letting go of that which is not true. So if I let go of that which is not true, then what is true can come to the fore, and that's what we're looking for. That's what's important. So there's a process of it's a progression, regression, rebirth. So the law of cause and effects works progressively and regressively. Somebody stated, as we give, so do we receive. That's progressively. Extending love, as Lynn is just saying, exactly the same thing. Well, why do you get this ahead of me?
It always happens that way.
Yeah, I know.
I write a poem and you talk about that subject the day after I write the poem.
Right.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, of course, it's wonderful when the overlaps.
The lights connecting, you know,
Got it.
formed. Yeah.
So, likewise, just as extending love flows back our way, to attack an error in another is to hurt yourself. That's a direct quote from the Course, that last part. To attack error in another is to hurt oneself. Right? You cannot hurt somebody else without hurting yourself. I mean, if we just understood that basic principle, and I keep saying that if you just understood the basic principle, just do not attack. I mean, that is so simple. Do not have if you see that you have attack thoughts, let them go really, really quickly. At least don't let them get to the throat and to the tongue. And don't let them get that far. All right? So, let's go. If karma, that's our action, goes against Dharma, cosmic laws, the repercussion is loss, as happens when degenerates or falls into anger, for example. One of the things that you should be learning as a Course in Miracles student is anger. There's a slide about this coming up. Anger is never justified. The word is never. And it just means that if you do, you've got to look at it. And you have to think, why is that coming up in me? And do I really need to entertain that? Or can I see that as a call for help and can I let that go? Right?
The term cosmic law.
Wait, you got to have the mic. Sorry.
The term cosmic law, I hear that all the time, but as it relates to Dharma, is there a 1 or 2 sentence explanation of what that is?
It's just a description of how it works. It's just a description of the process by where a law is a principle, a description of how something works. So we've got physics laws and chemical laws, etc. So this is just a law of the universe in that sense. But it's really a law of the mind that we're talking about, not a law of the world. Right. Okay. So the more we hurt another, the more we endanger ourselves. Guilt is always a heavy load to bear. And let's go on. So the atonement is the only defense that cannot be used destructively. Now, I know there's some psychologists in the room, and many of you have had at least basic courses in psychology. And if you did, one of the things you learn about are ego defense mechanisms. And there are dozens of ego defense mechanisms. Freud spent a good deal of time describing a dozen or more of them. His daughter Anna Freud went into more detail in describing even more of them. The atonement is also a defense mechanism, but the Course says it is the only mechanism that cannot be used destructively because it's not a device that you made. So the others we made, we came up with. And I'll list some of these in a moment. So the principle of the atonement was in effect before the atonement began. That's because it wasn't necessary. The principle was love, and atonement is an act of love. We're really acting out, we're loving ourselves when we're beginning to think the right way, with the right mind, right? Acts were not necessary before the separation because belief in space and time did not exist. This is also basic to, obviously we believe in space and time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. And we wouldn't have made arrangements to get together at 1:30, that's time, in this space, in order to be able to have this conversation. It all looks quite real, but we're really looking, knowledge of God transcends that. Love is something which transcends space and time. You love someone, you love your mother. Your mother is no longer on planet Earth. Space and time, it's not a matter of space and time. But the knowledge of that is still there with you. So the purpose of the atonement is to restore everything to you. And it's taking us back to who we really were, without all of the concomitant masks and mess that we create for ourselves in the creation of a world and a personality that we try to fit into the world. So you were given everything when you were created, just as everyone was. So again, that just implies we're all absolutely equal in God's sight. No one is better than worse than anyone else. And knowing that is very, very helpful, right? Did any of you see last night on Channel 13 PBS had the Elephant Man on? But just be curious, that was playing last night. And what an incredible story of a man who's so totally, incredibly deformed that he becomes a freak at a show. But there's a wonderful soul in there. There's this beautiful spirit that is just longing to come out, and does. With the help of a kind doctor, he's able to get more in touch with his real reality. And then he leaves. By leaves, I mean leaves planet Earth. So the atonement thus becomes the only defense that's not a two-edged sword. So all the other defenses that we use, I use here as an example denial. All the other defenses, the Course in Miracles says, can be used. It's a two-edged sword because it can cut both ways. By that I mean you can use it as an ego device. You can use it as an ego tool, like denial. But the Holy Spirit has a way of turning everything over and using it in another way. One of the ways that appears in the Course, it says, the task of the miracle worker thus becomes to deny the denial of truth. That's like a double negative. But it says what we're denying is the denial of truth. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're not... And as we create a false world, as we create a make-believe world, again, you may remember some months ago, a slide of Marilyn Monroe saying, it's all make-believe, isn't it? Well, yeah, it's all make-believe, and we make believe even more make-believable, unmake-believable, right? And we keep doing that. So we have to watch out for that. But there is a good movement on to clean house and to get back to the truth. The next slide. So miracles are natural. This is principle number 6 of the Course in Miracles principles. Miracles are natural when they do not occur. Something has gone wrong. So the most natural thing in the world is love. It's the most natural thing that there is. The most natural thing is that we would be loving. Miracles are something which is perfectly natural.
Could I share something? You said about, your parents being gone and everything. I find that I'm not separate from my mother.
Right.
I was brushing my hair, and I just pictured her hands brushing. Everybody, there's no separation.
Got it. And sitting next to you is Jeff, who has a story about his mother that's in the book on mysticism. You want to tell the story?
I could do that, sure.
Okay.
I was coming out of all things, my barber shop. I had just gotten a haircut. Perfect prelude for a mystical experience, of course. And someone walked by, an elderly woman. She was just reminded me of her for some reason. And I don't know whether that was a coincidence or whether that triggered it, but I just got this feeling of spreading warmth in my chest. My eyes welled up with tears, and I just, in my mind's eye, I could see, not really see, but see, just the fact that we're all connected, that there is literally nothing, separation literally does not exist. And in that flash, all attack, all separation, all fear just dissolved, because if there's only one thing and we're only all a part of that one thing, then fear and attack and being attacked is completely impossible. and just that reality just flashed in there, and I just like, it was just an incredible experience, and I thought about going back and telling the folks, hey, I'm having a mystical experience, but when you start doing that, it disappears. So I just leaned against the building and just enjoyed it for a couple of minutes or however long it was, and then that was the impetus to continue to read the course. So
that's a great story.
And also when I get up in the morning, just for that flash, she passed away like 4 years ago. I feel her presence just when I wake up, just for that nanosecond, and it's just
right.
a cool acknowledgement. So, yeah.
How could you not feel that? That's great. So let's go on with this. Thoughts and their results. So the function of thought comes from God and is in God. As part of His thought, you cannot think apart from Him. We were talking about that as we were walking from the car up to here today. Think about that idea for a moment. You cannot think apart from Him. You cannot think apart from God. So, obviously that's not our experience. Our experience is that we do think apart from God, but the part that we think that's not a part of God, in Course in Miracles terms, would be a fantasy. Or it would be, it's not reality. It's a dream. It's a dream that we're just like you having a dream at night. We're daydreaming. So in the daydream, we make up things within the context of the daydream. Unless you have a kind of experience like Jeff had, or anyone can have this kind of experience, where, again, and I thought it was interesting you described that you felt the interconnectedness of all things in that moment, right? Because that's wonderful when you feel that interconnected, and it can even happen under difficult circumstances. People will describe that happening in an automobile accident or something. Like, actually, there was a guy who was giving a talk in London, and he told this experience of, he said he was riding as a passenger in a car, and the car started to go under a lorry, a truck, right? It was going to go right underneath the wheels of an 18-wheeler, right? And he heard, at that moment, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. This has to happen. The interesting phrase is the last one. Or maybe it meant the other way, but this has to happen? What? So even when the things don't seem to make sense that are happening, and I know in my own life, and I'm sure that in many of your lives as well, there'll be something that will happen and you will say, I never would want this to happen. I wouldn't want this cancer to happen. I wouldn't want this divorce to happen. I wouldn't want this financial loss to happen. And yet, by golly, 10 years later, you look back and you say, whoa, that had to happen.
Synchronicity. That's it. That's the synchronicity.
Yeah, that's the synchronicity.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so going on with this. So without projection, there can be no anger. And without extension, there can be no love. So projection is something we're throwing out there. There is a kind of projection the Course in Miracles talks about which is healthy, good, it's the right kind of projection, but that's called love. It's as we extend love, then the extension of love is right. Okay, so just a couple more quotes, then we'll be up for our break. The Holy Spirit, like the ego, is a decision. Let's go on to this one.
The power of decision is incredible. I remember when I told my friend, I'm choosing joy. It was hard to keep, but I chose that.
Mm-hmm. Of course you chose.
And my friend reminded me I chose that. And
Right.
that's what I choose. Like I choose to meet every challenge with love now.
Good.
Of course, that's the
We
only
should
way to
also
live.
love that philosophy.
Only way to live.
The only way to live. Thanks. All right. Okay, so our thought system can be corrected. That's the good news. We can get out of the dark, shadowy ego place. Our split ecological minds. I've introduced you to this word before. I just find it's a fun word. It's 17 letters long. It's a real word. You can look it up online and you will see. Agatha means good. Kaka, you know what kaka means. Kako, logical. Our split minds may be made whole again. The process is simple. Those who said not easy. So whatever you accept into your mind has reality for you. This is the course now. If you accept it, it is your acceptance of it that makes it real. I'm making it real in my mind. This can be something that I'm seeing a problem, but I'm making the problem real. There's not even a problem doesn't even have to exist. A good example is holding a grievance. Okay? So a grievance is only a grievance if you're holding a grievance. You don't have to have a grievance. I mean, something may have happened, but why would you hold on to a grievance about it? Why would somebody did something against you and now you want to feel hurt about it? Rather than letting it go is the forgiveness. And once the forgiveness happens, that's what really matters.
I think that's when you make the decision for joy.
It is.
When
of
you
course.
choose joy, you say, "What am I? What have you know? It's
Yeah.
ruining something. It's ruining my life."
Right. And we don't need to let that happen. Okay, let's go on for this a little bit more. Then we're going to take a break after this. If you enthrone the ego in your mind, you're allowing it to enter, makes it reality. Of course, the real question is always, who is allowing the ego to enter into the mind? That's the real question. We want to go back to the source, right? Who is making this choice? Who is choosing? Who is Charlie the chooser? Who is choosing to see it this way, right?
And we have a choice which to choose.
Right, you have a choice which to choose. All right. So the mind is capable of creating reality or making illusion. I said before, I is the Christ mind here, right, Brad? It is. I said before that you must learn to think with God. Now, I underline and put quotation marks and put that in caps. That's not in caps with the quotation marks around it in the Course itself. Must learn to think with God. So if I must learn to think with God, then I should get on with doing that. If I get on to doing that, then things are going to be working out much more smoothly. My mind will be in accordance with the Dharma, in accordance with this kind of cosmic law. I have to think this way. Not thinking this way just makes me miserable and leads me down a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down. Right? But again, just keep thinking about who is it that makes this decision. This engenders joy, not guilt, as Lynn just got through saying, because it is natural.
It happened again.
Yeah, it keeps happening, right? Guilt is a sure sign that your thinking is unnatural. Okay, we got 40 slides and we're up to 19, so let me see what 20 is. Yeah, let's go back. Okay, I think this is a good time for us to take our 15-minute break.